Zhenzhen bound the system to save villains in different worlds, but only after reading the plot did he realize what those were all about. Scumbags, twisted killers, oh no, what a coincidence. Her greatest skill is to specialize in dealing with all kinds of dissent. Develop different plans for different villains, making each one submit to their subordinates. Opponent 1. Modern rebel rich second-generation opponent 2. Age paranoid male villain number 3. West fantasy world killer villain number 4. The great demon lord of heaven and earth destruction. Keywords of the novel. Hand-tiered script, no pop-ups for despicable villains. Hand-tiered script, Despicable Villains complete collection download. Hand-tiered script, Despicable Villains latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 1. Zhenzhen, 18 years old, drowned in 5 minutes. Do you want to continue living? Help me, as long as I can live, let me do anything. Today is Zhenzhen's 18th birthday, just 2 days after the college entrance examination. My parents took a leave of absence to celebrate her adulthood and took her on a trip. Who would have thought that one moment she was still taking a walk by the seaside, and the next moment she was pushed into the sea. The other party has a lot of strength, and no matter how hard she struggles, it's useless. Who killed her? What will her parents do if she dies? The contract between System 081 and host Zhenzhen was successful. As the system announced the success of the contract, Zhenzhen felt a sharp pain in his head, as if he had been hit hard by someone rotating a hammer. After a while, the pain subsided and a large display screen appeared before my eyes. Host. Zhenzhen Contract System. 081 Contract Task. To rehabilitate the villain. As long as you go to different worlds to complete tasks, you can go back to the past to avoid death and even catch the culprit. The system command is complete, and new content appears on the large screen. Lu Ming is a carefree and happy second-generation wealthy man who spends his days either drinking alcohol and flirting with girls, or racing and playing games, relying on his wealthy family to dominate. Recently, I've been seeing a little celebrity, but the other person doesn't give me a good face. In a fit of anger, he drugged someone and wanted to forcefully invade them. During the process of resisting, the little star stabbed him in the lower body. Lu Ming swore to kill the little celebrity, so he found someone to kidnap her and shoot indecent videos, and even framed her for carrying huge debts. The little star was not defeated by him. First, he starred with the best actor and became popular in movies. Later, he even fell in love with the best actor and won the Best Actress award. The best actor is a genius hacker who, in order to help his girlfriend escape the sea of suffering, has released evidence of Lu Ming's crime and evidence of Lu's family's tax evasion. In the end, Lu Ming committed many evil deeds and ended up in prison. The Lu family went bankrupt as a scapegoat, and the actor and the female lead had a great reunion. Task. Save Lu Ming and help him reform. Zhenzhen. Does Lu Ming match him? How many pairs do you have? Such a person should be killed directly. Save a yarn. 081, calm down. Lu Ming has just returned from studying abroad and ran into a little celebrity at the airport. Everything is still in time. Please use your gentle kindness to soothe his lonely and empty heart. Zhenzhen. You. Lu Ming's private life is chaotic, and he likes to use power to suppress others. Such scumbags are not worthy of being treated gently. Zhenzhen quickly checked the system mall and found that only the newcomer gift package could be opened. The contents are molded clay, blood relationship potion, and infinite power pill. She didn't hesitate to click confirm, and soon there was a pile of clay and a bottle of red medicine in front of her. As for the pills, keep them as a precaution. Zhenzhen has good hands-on ability, burying his head and making a little girl model with clay, and then pouring the blood relationship potion. The system almost froze with anger when it saw her explosion operation. Oh my goodness, it wants to see the pure little white flower and the rich second generation of the prodigal son deeply in love. First, it's the stunt double by Yueguang, then it's mommy running with the ball, and finally it's chasing my wife at the crematorium, not the young dad taking care of the kids. Zhenzhen is not a fool, his nature is hard to change. People like Lu Ming are used to playing with excitement, how can they easily relax? Only by hanging him on the wall can we be honest. Moreover, there is nothing in the world that can bring two strangers closer than blood ties. She just wants to finish the task quickly and return to reality, catch the killer who killed her. Zhenzhen attached himself to the pinched model, and white light flashed, transforming the clay figurine into a 3-year-old doll. A fleshy face, round eyes, and lotus-like limbs, how cute they look. At this time, Lu Ming's mother is in the beauty salon, his father is playing golf, his sister is at the group headquarters, his brother-in-law is in the hospital, his nephew is in kindergarten, and he himself is lying on a yacht. She asked the system to place herself near the police station, and her education from childhood to adulthood told us that it was right to find the police when we encountered difficulties. There is a middle-aged police officer sitting in the nearby guard post. It was so hot in early June that he was dizzy, even the fan was blowing hot air. When the police were drowsy, they accidentally saw a 2- or 3-year-old girl standing alone by the road and hurriedly ran out to understand the situation. "Child, where are your parents? Are you lost? Dad's gone." Zhenzhen blinked and tried to put on a look of grievance. "Don't be afraid, the police uncle will help you find your dad." The middle-aged police officer led her into the police station to explain the situation, while the resting female police officer brought her food and drinks and kindly helped her wipe her sweat. "Child, do you remember Dad's name and phone number?" "Dad's name is Lu Ming, I don't know the phone number." "Do you remember where your home address is?" Zhenzhen pulled out a note from her pocket, which read the address of the Lu family, and she chose the nearest police station to the Lu family. After seeing the address, the police drove her back. The Lu family is a 3-story detached villa, with a distance of over 100 meters from the courtyard to the gate. Through the window, one can see the dense lawn. The police car was parked outside the door, and the door was opened by the nanny of the Lu family. The policewoman whispered to her, "Do you live here?" "Yes, my dad lives here." "Who is your father?" The nanny looked at the 3 people in front of her, as if Master Zhang Er was puzzled. "Lu Ming is my father," Zhenzhen kindly reminded. "Young Master Lu Ming. The nanny has been working at the Lu family for 5 years, haven't you heard that the young master has children?" However, she couldn't make a decision on this matter and hurriedly contacted the butler. The butler is over 50 years old, with grey hair and dressed in a well-cut black suit, looking very much like a British deacon. Upon hearing the police explain their purpose, he smiled and led them through the door. Regardless of whether the child belongs to a young master or not, it must be handled in a low-key manner to avoid affecting the reputation of the Lu family. The female police officer walked into the spacious courtyard holding the pastor, and then into the luxurious villa. The entrance is made of the Taihu Lake stone sculpture. The living room is equipped with Chinese mahogany furniture, with ink paintings on the wall and antique tea cups on the table. Although it looks ordinary, it makes people feel that everything is extraordinary. Perhaps this is what people often say, low-key luxury has connotations. Mrs. Lu received a call from the butler and hurried back, knowing her son's character best. "Since you dare to send the child to your door, it is most likely true." As soon as she entered the door, she saw a little girl sitting in the living room. At the age of 2 or 3, she looks round and smooth, with eyebrows and eyes somewhat similar to her son's. Zhenzhen also looked up at Lady Lu, with a square face and wide forehead, wearing a dark green qipao, and a serious expression. Mrs. Lu first thanked the police, then called her son and asked him to come back immediately. At this moment, Lu Ming was holding a small model on a yacht and drinking. He had been back to China for half a month and only had the first 2 days at home due to time difference. He spent the rest of his time playing with his friends. Minga, you have found the woman I was looking for. A man wearing a floral shirt shouted on the yacht. His name is Li Shang'an, and he is also a famous second-generation wealthy man. Don't be fooled by the good relationship with Lu Ming now. In fact, the two of them were like water and fire when they were young, often fighting. 3 years ago, they were all studying abroad in the United States. Perhaps they acted too openly and were surrounded and intercepted by violent groups, and the other party even threatened with a gun. Lu Ming didn't hesitate, rolled up his sleeves and just did it, beating the other person's head to pieces before he was willing to stop. Since then, Li Shang'an has called Lu Ming Minggu, and his relationship has become closer. What's her name? Lu Ming put down his glass. When he returned to China, he saw a beautiful girl at the airport, who matched his preferences in both body shape and temperament. Unfortunately, the other person got on the car and left before saying a word. I thought the matter would end like this, but I didn't expect Li Shang'an to have the means to find me with just a side photo. This is a fast-paced article, I hope everyone likes it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 2. Xia Chuyun, 23 years old, is a young star in Big Brother Zhou's company. If you like it, I'll tell you. Li Shang'an smiled lewdly. Get lost, I see who needs your arrangement. Lu Ming kicked Li Shang'an twice. When does he need help chasing people? Anyone who knows his identity is obedient like a kitten. Yes, Brother Ming is mighty. Li Shang'an quickly begged for mercy. A few people drank almost the same, and Lu Ming hugged the little model and prepared to open the room to sleep. Unexpectedly, his mother suddenly called. Get back now. What's going on? Before he could finish asking, the phone hung up. Lu Ming didn't dare to delay, so he left the little model and went home. Normally, my mother would never come to him if there were no major issues. Her tone was so serious just now. Has our family gone bankrupt? Mrs. Lu hung up the phone and sat opposite Zhenzhen, smiling and asking, Are you Zhenzhen, right? Yes, Grandma. Today is my 3rd birthday. Oh, that's great. Mom Wu, inform the pastry chef to prepare a cake that is suitable for children to eat. Yes, madam. Upon hearing Mrs. Wu's words, she immediately called the pastry chef. Thank you, Grandma. Zhenzhen raised her small face and showed a big smile. Where's your mother? Did she send you over? My mother is guarding me in other worlds, so I want my dad to come over. Zhenzhen looked innocent, and Mrs. Lu didn't ask any further. The rest will be discussed when her son comes back. Zhenzhen felt a bit awkward in the atmosphere and took the initiative to say that he wanted to watch Journey to the West. After all, this TV series is suitable for all ages and can also pass the time. Halfway through, she pointed to her daughter, the King of the Kingdom, on TV and said, She looks like a grandmother. Mrs. Lu pursed her lips and smiled. In the evening, when Mr. Lu returned from playing golf, Zhenzhen immediately stood up and said, Hello Grandpa, I am Zhenzhen. Okay, Mr. Lu replied with a smile. He is already in his 50s, with wrinkles engraved on his forehead and silver strands mixed in his temples. He looks elegant and easygoing, but in reality, he is ruthless and decisive in them all. Wu Mama brought over the prepared cake, which looked like a little bear with very little cream and looked like a child's flavor. Mrs. Lu and Mr. Lu are in good health. They don't eat these things, so Mrs. Wu cut a small piece and put it in front of Zhenzhen. The rest is taken away. Because she is too young, eating too much worries her stomach. When Zhenzhen buried his head in eating the cake, Lu Ming came back. Yellow airplane nose, black loose top paired with ripped jeans, giving people a feeling of being playful. Mom, what's going on? Dear Ming panted heavily. Look at that child, Mrs. Lu pointed to Zhenzhen. Dad, old and strong. Lu Ming assumed that the child was his father's illegitimate daughter, and said that the old man is still able to give birth at the age of 55. TSK, no wonder his mother called him back. Dad. Zhenzhen pointed to the deer's chirping, his voice clear and loud, and everyone present heard it. Lu Ming looked at his parents and then at the little girl. Bright and watery big eyes, pink cheeks, the only thing that looks like me is two small dimples. Who told you, I'm your dad? Lu Ming frowned, his eyes full of resentment. Zhenzhen could see clearly even from a distance of 5 meters. Mom said your name is Lu Ming, it's my dad. Who is your mother? Who made her give birth to you? The deer roared wildly, he played wildly, but he always made it clear in advance. Not to mention giving birth to a child, even pregnancy is not allowed. Zhenzhen was also angry. If it weren't for the sake of survival, who would be willing to give such scumbags a daughter? It's considered polite for labor and management not to confront each other. Since you want to be artificial, don't blame me for being impolite. Zhenzhen seemed frightened, her body trembling and her eyes filled with tears. Her voice choked and she said, Mom said Dad would protect me, but you're cruel to me. I can't find Mom, and I don't have a home anymore. She didn't cry or roll around, but silently shed tears, which made her look even more pitiful. Mr. Lu and Mrs. Lu glared at the deer in dissatisfaction. They had never taught him to be cruel to children, so he was completely ignorant. Grass, go do a paternity test. Lu Ming roared irritably. She is 3 years old and I am 20.2 years old. Going back, it was rolling sheets with her mother at the age of 18. At that time, he was abroad, and his private life was very chaotic. The women who slept could not count their hands and feet. Who knows which one it is? Besides, this child may not be his, otherwise how could he just come knocking on him now? Check it out early and send the person away as soon as possible. Zhao Dongming was surprised when he received a call from his brother. In law. Their hospital can indeed conduct a paternity test, and if urgent, the results will be available within 24 hours. Lu Ming couldn't wait until tomorrow, so he hung up the phone and pulled Zhenzhen out. Mrs. Lu hurriedly asked Mrs. Wu to follow, so that he wouldn't be careless and lose the child. This shows how unreliable deer crowing is in the eyes of the deer family. What's going on? Lu Zhiping looked at her husband. Today, a child came to my door and said it belonged to my brother. In law. He wants to do a paternity test, Zhao Dongming said truthfully. After all, this kind of thing cannot be concealed. After hearing this, Lu Zhiping's expression remained calm. Her younger brother used to mess around every day when he was abroad. If it weren't for his mother sending someone to keep an eye on him, he might have even sucked in that thing. His family doesn't need him to inherit the family business, nor do they expect him to start a business. As long as he doesn't cause big trouble, he will burn incense and worship Buddha. Lu Ming pulled Zhenzhen to the hospital to collect samples, then drove the front of the car without turning back, leaving Wu Mama and Zhenzhen in chaos in the wind. Finally, Wu Mama called the butler to send a car to the hospital to pick them up. There were too many things happening today. First, he was killed by a pervert, and then he traveled to an inexplicable world to do tasks. Zhenzhen's energy had long been exhausted. Not long after getting into the car, she fell asleep in Wu's arms. No dreams all night until dawn. When Zhenzhen woke up, he saw the unfamiliar ceiling and was stunned for a long time before realizing it. Speaking of which, this room is bigger than her home and the decoration is very luxurious. Out of curiosity, she walked around the room. I originally wanted to wash myself, but the table was too high and the chair was too heavy, so I couldn't even rely on external forces. Wu's mother saw her come out and carefully helped her take a shower and change clothes. Toothpaste and toothbrushes are all for children's use, and the clothes are in the style of boys, presumably prepared for Lu Zhiping's son. Surprisingly, things on the breakfast table are very common, such as bread, congee, vegetables, fruits, not the legendary truffle, goose liver. After breakfast, Mrs. Lu asked Mrs. Wu to take her to the children's playground to play. There is an indoor amusement park built on the first floor of the Lu family. It used to be played by the Lu Ming siblings, but later by the son of Lu Zhiping. While playing with puzzles, Zhenzhen pondered what could be done to make Lu Ming reform. It's even harder than reaching the sky to change the way adults do things. Forget it, when the boat reaches the bridge, it will naturally straighten out. In the evening, Zhao Dongming sent over the test results, and Lu Zhiping also brought his son back. Zhenzhen obediently greeted everyone, and the 5-year-old Tong Tong hugged her chest with both hands and coldly asked who she was. Why is it appearing here? Why has he never seen it before? Zhenzhen said she is the daughter of Lu Ming and just came over yesterday. Mom, is she really my uncle's daughter? Is it true? We just need to open this file to know, Lu Zhiping said and tore open the file bag. It is written above that the probability value of parent-child relationship has been calculated to be 99.99%, confirming parent-child relationship. Mrs. Lu and Mr. Lu were in a complex mood, but they didn't expect Zhenzhen to be their granddaughter. Unfortunately, she had an irresponsible son on the table. Lu Ming left the hospital last night and went to play with Li Shang'an. They have been holding a swimsuit selection at the villa these days, and the winner can travel to France for free. As for why it's free, everyone who enters the villa knows. Mom called again, and Lu Ming remembered last night's examination and immediately asked her if the results were out. Is it really my seed? Yes. Alright, you and Dad have nothing to do and can take care of the children at home. I have something else to do, so I'll hang up for now. I didn't get home before 10 o'clock, so you don't need to swipe your card anymore. Sure enough, no matter how arrogant the wealthy second generation is, as long as they grasp his dead whole, they will obediently obey, and Lu Ming is no exception. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 3. At 10 o'clock, as soon as Lu Ming enters the door, there will be 3 rounds of review. Dad, Mom, and Sister all had gloomy faces, and those who didn't know thought something big had happened. Come here. Mr. Lu's voice was tinged with anger. Lu Ming pouted and sat aside. Since Zhenzhen is your daughter, please register her under your name. Take her to apply for household registration as soon as possible, otherwise it will be very troublesome in the future, Lu Zhiping said calmly. Your mother and I are very busy and don't have time to take care of your child, Mr. Lu snorted coldly. Are you sure you want me to take care of you? Lu Ming lazily asked with his legs crossed, as long as they didn't mind taking care of the little girl themselves. Mrs. Lu feels a lot of pain in her head. How did the obedient and clever child from childhood become a carefree person now? After finishing the matter, Lu Ming yawned and went upstairs. He hadn't slept for 2 days and nights, and was so tired that he was dying. As for the cheap girl, is it difficult for the parents who want face to ignore her life and death? The next afternoon, Zhenzhen and Tong Tong were having lunch. After getting along last night and this morning, the two have become very familiar. Tong Tong is a bear child who grabs whatever the pastor plays with, from puzzles to dolls to rocking carts. Zhenzhen allowed him to grab, but Tong Tong felt bored and stopped grabbing. As soon as he stopped, Zhen praised him for his prowess and even took the initiative to ask him how to play Lego. Tong Tong taught her arrogantly, and soon the two became talkative. After all, she's not a real child, it's easy to coax a bear child. Lu Ming came down from upstairs, stomping heavily on his slippers, and the whole villa could hear the sound of clicking. Zhenzhen worked hard to cook and didn't have time to talk to him. Tisk, that's really stupid. Lu Ming sat on the sofa and looked at the little girl struggling to bite her flesh, then looked away with disdain. Zhenzhen looked up in confusion. Is Lu Ming talking about her? There's a saying that goes, first tease her, then don't blame her for being weird. Dad, did your face get burned by the fire? Her words were particularly innocent and innocent. A few days ago, Lu Ming was playing on a yacht, surfing and sunbathing. His face was tanned red, and there were several peeling spots on his neck, making him look terrifying. What do you mean? Lu Ming gritted his teeth and gritted his teeth. Uncle, your face is so ugly. Tong Tong kindly looked for the mirror, and Zhen suddenly felt that he was very cute. Lu Ming looked at his black and red cracked cheeks in the mirror, and with a loud bang, he smashed the mirror. Be careful not to harm the child. Mrs. Lu scolded. Don't you take a look at what they're doing. He's so young, what do you understand? In the afternoon, he took Zhen out to buy daily necessities, but she didn't even have clothes to wear. Let Wu Ma handle this small matter, okay? It's really not possible. I don't have time to call someone to deliver the goods to my door. Lu Ming didn't want to, he still has a date tonight. Upon hearing their conversation, Zhenzhen ran over and hugged Mrs. Lu's arm, saying, Grandma, is Dad really willing to take me out? Of course, Dad will take you to buy new clothes. Wow, thank you Dad. Zhenzhen has been wearing clothes for children these days. In fact, there is not much difference between the clothes of a 3- or 4-year-old boy and a little girl, with cute styles and soft materials. However, no woman hates shopping, especially when she can buy things without spending her own money. The sun outside is scorching the earth, as if it is melting the entire world. It's 12 noon now, which is the hottest time of the day. Lu Ming said with a mischievous smile, okay, I'll take her out and leave now. You. Mrs. Lu said, it's so hot now. What should we do if we take our child out for heatstroke? Do you dare to go out like this and not be afraid of disfigurement? I will contact a beautician to come and have you repaired after sunbathing later. Lu Zhiping went downstairs while calling. Lu Zhiping is 5 years older than Lu Ming, and from childhood to adulthood, she has been flawless in everything she does. She is also quite talented in business. She has a decisive personality and is capable of handling tasks. More than half of the board members are optimistic about her inheriting the Lu Group. In contrast, Lu Ming achieved nothing but eating, drinking, and playing. It's really troublesome. Although Lu Ming's mouth was tough, he still listened to his sister's words. Because his parents will get used to him, and his sister who learned Sonda will not. When she got tired of playing, Wu's mother took her 2 children to take a nap, and the beautician came to take care of the skin of Lu Zhiping and her siblings. After 4 o'clock, the sun is not so hot. Lu Zhiping knocked on the door on the west side, and the deer chirped for half an hour before coming down. When he set off, he was unwilling to install a safety seat in the car and felt it was too ugly. Zhenzhen had no choice but to ride in Lu Zhiping's Bentley with Tong Tong, while Lu Ming drove the Maybach alone with great elegance. A few people arrived at the shopping center. The first floor was for jewelry, the second floor was for women's handbags, the third floor was for children's clothing and children's playground, and the fourth floor was for the food center. Lu Zhiping wanted to buy jewelry and give it to a client, so she asked Lu Ming and 2 nannies to take the child to the third floor first, and she will go up later. The elevator reached the third floor, and Lu Ming handed the card to Wu Mama and then found a coffee shop to sit down. It's troublesome to pick clothes with a child. He hasn't even accompanied his girlfriend and transfers money every time. Zhenzhen held Tong Tong's hand and said she was afraid of getting lost. Tong Tong immediately looked up and straightened his chest, saying don't be afraid. If you follow him, there won't be any trouble. He knows the way. Look, even a 5-year-old child has a greater sense of responsibility than a deer crowing. Zhenzhen looked at the dazzling array of goods, her eyes shining brightly. Children's things are so cute. Look at those little skirts and toys, they were all things she dreamed of when she was a child. Having a rare experience with a wealthy person, she pinched her waist with one hand and pointed to the clothes on the shelf, saying to the salesperson, "This row, except for the sleeveless ones, I want everything else." The salesperson's eyes lit up and she knelt down directly to change her clothes and shoes. When Mama swiped her card to write the address, they laughed even brighter and repeatedly promised to deliver the goods to their doorstep as soon as possible. Next is the toy area, where children like airplane models, Zhenzhen likes scooters. In addition, she also buys suitcases, a toy grabber, a drum stand. Lu Ming almost didn't spit out a text message at the coffee shop, so he spent 100,000 yuan in just a short while. TSK, this girl will also be a gold-swallowing beast in the future. After shopping, Wu Ma took the two children to the coffee shop, where Lu Zhiping was already waiting. The two children immediately raised their small faces and said they were hungry when they saw her. Lu Zhiping used wet tissue to help them sweat, and then took them to the fourth floor, where there were many delicious restaurants. Coincidentally, as soon as I walked out of the staircase, I ran into Li Shangyan. He was holding on to the waist of a sexy beauty, accompanied by 7 or 8 young men and women. Yi Zhenzhen's gaze swept around and finally fell on the woman wearing a yellow waist-up dress. That is a person who is at ease and elegant, but the deer wants to sleep but cannot fall asleep. In high school, Lu Ming made a bet with Li Shangyan on who would win Engzinya first, but Li Shangyan won. Lu Ming was very dissatisfied, unable to successfully pry into the corner of the wall by sending diamonds or luxury cars, so he has been longing for it for many years. Zhenzhen, who has watched the plot, knows that Anxinya is just indulging in sensual pleasures. What she wants is not a luxury car, but to marry into the Lu family and hang it not far or near before Lu Ming takes his heart. For people like Lu Ming, it's not too much to hang. Minga, Pingjia, are you also shopping? Li Shangyan walked over with a smile and greeted, while other male and female students nodded and gestured. Well, come and buy something for the child, Lu Zhiping said with a smile. Yi Zhenzhen could see that Lu Ming was about to leave her to play with his friends, so he took the initiative to hold his hand and shouted, "Dad! Let go!" Lu Ming frowned and withdrew his hand. Ah! Zhenzhen let out a scream and flew out. The child's tear glands were too developed, and they didn't need to squeeze them out on their own. Zhenzhen. Lu Zhiping was so frightened by this scene that her eyelids twitched. She quickly ran over to check on her. Li Shangyan and others were stunned. Although they were not good people, beating children was too much, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 4. Uncle is a bad person. Tong Tong used a plane to smash Lu Ming. I didn't exert any force at all. Lu Ming was burning with anger. He didn't really exert any force, it was Zhenzhen who fell out on his own. Who let him harm himself? He deserves it. She hasn't even walked steadily, do you still need to exert force? Lu Zhiping helped chin up and coldly watched as the deer crowed. Dad, I'm sorry, it's all because I didn't stand firm that I fell. Auntie, don't be angry. Dad definitely didn't mean it. Yi Zhenzhen said it was more like adding fuel to the fire than just comforting. Not only Li Shangyan felt sorry for the little girl now, but also couldn't bear to see passers-by. They all came forward to accuse Lu Ming of hitting the child on the street, it's really garbage. Lu Zhiping didn't want to argue in public, so she went to the children's restaurant with Zhen in her arms, and Wu Mama followed with Tong Tong. Grass. Lu Ming was so angry that he kicked over the nearby trash can. Li Shangyan and others looked at each other, then patted his shoulder and said to go play, just to relax. Anxinya watched as Lu Zhiping's figure disappeared, biting her lips. It seemed that some plans were about to be advanced, and she would never allow anyone to rely on her child to rise to power. Zhenzhen buried his face on Lu Zhiping's shoulder and chuckled. If Lu Ming was unhappy, she would be happy, and if Lu Ming was angry, he would treat it as an extra reward. Returning to the Lu family, Wu Mama told Madam about today's situation. Mrs. Lu looked at her granddaughter with heartache, eager to pull her son over and beat him up. Unfortunately, I couldn't hit it because Lu Ming had been playing outside for a whole week and didn't come back. Zhenzhen noticed that there was no important plot, so she obediently stayed at home to please Mr. and Mrs. Lu. Perhaps it was a cross-generational relationship, and the two of them treated her extremely well. Zhenzhen, recite a poem for Grandma. The bright moonlight in front of the bed, suspected to be frost on the ground. Looking up at the bright moon, bowing my head to think of my hometown. Great. Mrs. Lu bought a lot of early education materials, and occasionally recited poems, listened to stories, learned to count, and behaved awkwardly. Zhenzhen, count Grandpa. I heard you can count up to 20. Mr. Lu also likes to tease her. Zhen broke his fingers and counted to 10, then smiled and counted Grandpa's fingers, counting to 20. Both Mr. Lu and Mrs. Lu think she is very smart, and she smiles and never cries every day. In the second week, when Lu Ming returned, Mrs. Lu asked him to quickly take his pastor to apply for household registration, so as not to become a black household. Do you understand when you call Lu Zhenzhen in the future? Lu Ming's heart was very complicated when he came out of the police station, and he turned out to be a single father. Understood. Zhenzhen saluted the police officer just now, raising his small arms high, looking neither fish nor fish. Lu Ming was amused by her and rarely found it troublesome. On the way home, Li Shang'an called and said, in early summer, Yun will be shooting an advertisement in Yunqing in 3 days. Do you want him to act as a matchmaker? Upon hearing the 3 words, early summer clouds, Zhenzhen remembered that she was the female protagonist of this world. Father gambles, mother is weak, has no background, no backstage. If it weren't for the help of the male lead, she might have been ruined by the villain long ago. The male lead is the actor Li Qinfeng. Although the actor reviews once a year, he is not as famous as Li Qinfeng. There are 2 main reasons. First, he is handsome, cold, and mysterious, and second, he has enough fans. Okay, you can watch the arrangement. Lu Ming didn't refuse. This time he drove the car to the door before leaving, which was an improvement from last time. At least he didn't leave Zhen and Wu Ma on the roadside. At night, Mr. Lu returned and watched his granddaughter hesitate to speak. The assistant told him that the child appeared out of thin air, and the surveillance couldn't find any trace, except for the record from the police station. Ask her, but she can't explain clearly. Sigh. When Yun came to Yunqing to shoot an advertisement in early summer, Lu Ming's sunburned skin had already been well healed. Mrs. Lu's suggestion of doing whitening was strongly rejected, as he believed that men with dark spots were more attractive. Dad, where are you going? Lu Ming had just left when Zhen hugged his thigh. I have something to attend to, please don't worry. I don't. Lu Zhenzhen, don't make me angry. Lu Ming vigorously swung his right leg, causing Zhenzhen to fall to the ground and roll around. She didn't pretend this time, she really couldn't hold on. Wow, ah. Zhenzhen cried loudly, and Mrs. Lu raised her hand and slapped her son. Really, such a well-behaved child has been provoked to tears by him. Grandma, wow, Mom is missing, Dad doesn't want me anymore. Zhenzhen cried very sadly, tears streaming down her face, and Lu Fu's heart melted. Don't cry, Grandma will help you beat him. Mr. Lu heard crying and walked out of the study. Zhenzhen stumbled over and hugged his thigh to complain, Dad won't take me out to play, Grandpa. My hands hurt so much. Mr. Lu looked at his granddaughter's white and tender little hands, which were red and swollen, and his face sank. He always thought that Lu Ming was just playing around a bit, but he didn't expect to even hit the child. It was really disappointing. Lu Ming is speechless. If it weren't for this little thing clinging to him, how could such a thing have happened? Wu Mama helped Shen bandage her wound and reminded her not to play in water, otherwise it would be very painful. Zhen nodded obediently. After watching the farce end, Lu Ming turned around and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, a little thing caught up with him again, and this time he dared not struggle anymore. "I don't care where you go, I must take her with me today," said Mr. Lu, who dared not refuse. "Grandpa is really good, I love my grandparents the most." Zhenzhen smiled sweetly as she saw her goal achieved. Wu's mother took her upstairs to change clothes. She has been at the Lu's house for half a month now, and the room is filled with all kinds of expensive clothes and toys. The small princess dress sells for tens of thousands of yuan, and the small doll sells for thousands. "I'm really worried that I won't be able to adapt to the real world." Zhenzhen changed her clothes and went out with Lu Ming, and Wu Mama also followed. After all, Lu Ming didn't know how to take care of children, so if something went wrong, she would regret it. Lu Ming angrily drove to the racetrack. When his friends saw him, they all joked, "Brother Ming, I heard you have a daughter, isn't it true? Mind your own business." Lu Ming's face remained calm. "Li Shang'an said you have a 3-year-old daughter, and everyone is curious." Sun Haoyu patted Lu Ming's shoulder. "Dad, wait for me." As soon as everyone finished speaking, they saw a little girl wearing pink overalls running towards them. "Hello uncles, my name is Zhenzhen." Zhenzhen greeted them politely. Lu Ming treated her like air, but Zhen didn't care, blinking her big eyes and squatting beside him. Sun Haoyu couldn't see her, so he lifted her onto a stool and sat down. "Thank you, uncle." "You are welcome." Sun Haoyu has fair skin, delicate facial features, and a refreshing temperament. However, after playing with Lu Ming for so many years, how could he possibly be a little white rabbit? Li Shang'an and Lu Ming are really bad, fighting, threatening to kidnap. Sun Haoyu is different, appearing gentle and gentlemanly on the surface, but in reality, he is the craziest and most paranoid. "Little cutie, we're meeting again." There were cheers coming from not far away, and Zhenzhen turned her head to see that it was Li Shang'an. Wherever he goes, he is surrounded by a group of men and women, and he enjoys the feeling of being praised. This time, he is also at ease. "Uncle, your hair is so amazing." Zhenzhen was attracted by Li Shang'an's silver hair. He had a dark skin and was still an inch long. He was a well-behaved young man in his 20s, with a head full of white hair that looked like a decadent uncle. "Isn't he very handsome?" Li Shang'an felt proud. "How ugly!" Lu Ming said without any courtesy. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 5. A few people spoke for a while before going down to the competition. Today, many professional racing drivers came to play with us. In order to make the wealthy second generation have a happier time, many of them pretended to lose. Zhenzhen watched the luxury cars speeding on the track, and the audience cheered and felt it was noisy and hot. The sun is very bright today, there is no cloud in the sky, and the trees are standing listlessly. If it weren't for the air conditioning in the rest area, she might have been a little sweaty long ago. "Are you called Zhenzhen?" Anshin sat next to Zhenzhen. "Yes, Auntie, you are so beautiful." Zhenzhen smiled and looked up. "You're also very cute. Why didn't you see your mother?" "She didn't come today." Anshin finished speaking, and the girls nearby all perked up their ears. Everyone knows that for wealthy second-generation people like Lu Ming, making girlfriends is just for fun. Pregnancy and childbirth are absolutely not allowed. The dear family recognizes the pastor, on the one hand because her mother passed away and she was homeless, on the other hand, she is well behaved and sensible. Mr. Lu hopes to take this opportunity to teach her son to be responsible. My mother is guarding me in another world. She said my dad will protect me, but he doesn't like me at all. Zhen lowered her head and her voice became quieter as she spoke. The faces of the girls were complex, and besides having money at home, Lu Ming really had no advantages. The little girl is really pitiful to have such a father on the street. Don't be sad, you are so sensible, he will definitely like you in the future. And Xinya's smile became even gentler. When Lu Ming raced back, he found that the little girl was really happy, and all the women brought by Li Shang'an were circling around her. Someone fed her water, someone fed her fruit, and someone helped her wipe her mouth. TSK, do those who don't know think she's some kind of goosebump. In the evening, everyone left the racetrack and went to the hotel to eat, drink, and have fun. Lu Ming waited left and right, unable to wait until early summer clouds, feeling very irritable. When he gets restless, everyone else has to be careful to accompany his smiling face. Don't worry, Brother Ming. Xia Chuyun was blocked by fans on the road and should arrive in half an hour. Let's play first. Li Shang'an answered the phone and quickly came over to explain. Xinya heard the 3 words, early summer clouds, and her eyes darkened without speaking. Lu Ming has such obsession with her, but it doesn't affect him sleeping with other women everywhere. Speaking of which, the reason why Zhen is pestering the deer crowing today is because the plot at night is very important. The female protagonist was drugged and sent to Lu Ming's bed. During the resistance, she stabbed Lu Ming's lower body and fled. Encountering the male lead midway, the effect of the medication ceased, and the two rolled the sheets. I have to say, it's really dog blood. The male protagonist is set as an abstinence-oriented male god, who has not had any scandals for many years. Surprisingly, he rolled the sheets with a woman who was still in a state of confusion when he first met. The female lead is set as a resilient and unyielding little white flower, who has a one-night stand with the male lead in a daze. After waking up, I thought the other person was a duck and left a note saying, "Good service, I'll order you again next time, for 500 yuan. I can't understand the author's taste. Zhenzhen, do you want to eat strawberries? Xinya patiently took care of Zhenzhen all day. Ah. Zhenzhen opened her mouth and waited for the beautiful woman to feed her. You're so good. Auntie, do you want to be my mother? What if your father doesn't want to get married? Dad listens to his grandparents' words. Xinya smiled and touched her hair. If only Lu Ming could handle it so easily. The pastor who was touched by her head also smiled. It would be great if Xinya could be incited by her to take action. Lu Ming saw that it was getting late, so he asked Wu Mama to take the little girl back and stay here to affect his mood. Zhenzhen was unwilling and held onto the legs of the deer singing, pleading, "Dad, don't drive me away, okay? I will be obedient." No way. Lu Ming refused with a cold face. Even if you hate me, I still like you because you are my dad, Zhenzhen said, tears streaming down her face. If it weren't for the crowds here, she would want to applaud herself. I didn't expect her to portray the pitiful little character 3 times to the eye. Perhaps she can consider becoming an actress in the future. Lu Ming, she just wants to be with you, Anxin spoke softly. Yes, Minga, just let her stay. It's only 9 o'clock now, it's already early. The others also spoke up to persuade. Lu Ming twisted his eyebrows, but he didn't bother her anymore. When Zhenzhen was drowsy, the female lead finally appeared. Let me introduce to you all, this is Xia Chuyun, a big star of Xia. She happened to be shooting an advertisement in Yinqing these days. Come and get to know her. Li Shang'an smiled and led Xia Chuyun into her seat, next to Lu Ming. Zhenzhen looked up at Xia Chuyun. Her facial features were very delicate, her face was pure, and her figure was very tasteful. No wonder deer were salivating. Lu Ming has a clear goal, which is to sleep until early summer clouds tonight. Li Shang'an was very discerning and repeatedly hinted to Xia Chuyun that Lu Ming was the son of the richest man in Yuncheng. As long as he accompanied him well, he didn't have to worry about resources. Xia Chuyun smiled perfunctorily. Coming here tonight was forced by her agent, but it didn't mean she was willing to accept the unwritten rules. Lu Ming was fidgeting at the wine table, and in early summer, Yun was pushing 1,000 pounds in all directions, blocking them all. He was so angry that he slammed the door and went to the restroom. Li Shang'an's eyes rolled and he secretly drugged Yun's wine while she was talking to others in early summer. Li Shang'an often does this kind of thing, and Lu Ming is well aware of it. Zhenzhen saw everything and ran to the spot where Lu Ming was sitting with a clatter. Xia Chuyun was very puzzled. How could anyone bring children to such gatherings? "Auntie, you're so beautiful." "Thank you, child. You are also very beautiful." Xia Chuyun smiled gently and saw that the child's collar was dirty, so she took a tissue to help her wipe it. Lu Ming came out of the bathroom, and Li Shang'an gave him an okay gesture. He hooked his lips. Seeing the little girl occupying her position, without hesitation, she threw her into Wu Mama's arms. "Dad, come again." Zhenzhen seemed to enjoy playing like this, breaking free from Wu Mama's embrace and running to Lu Ming's side again. "Is she your daughter?" Xia Chuyun couldn't believe it. Lu Ming actually started fighting against him in front of his daughter. What a scumbag, scumbag. The scene instantly quieted down, and Zhen carefully replaced Xia Chuyun's cup in front of Li Shang'an. I didn't expect to bump into Sun Haoyu's smiling eyes as soon as he changed it. Shoo. She placed her index finger on her lips, indicating that the other person was keeping it a secret. Sun Haoyu smiled and nodded, thinking that the little girl was quite interesting. Take her back. Lu Ming was really angry. With this girl around, how could he still pick up girls? Cheers, I want a drink. The pastor lay on the ground and rolled around. She wouldn't leave without a toast. All right, let's drink together to our little princess. Li Shang'an raised his glass, and others also said to our little princess. Zhenzhen watched Li Shang'an finish his drink with his own eyes, and then bid farewell to everyone with a smile on his face. Sun Haoyu took the initiative to say he wanted to see them off, so he left the party. The hotel is quite far from Lu's house, and it takes half an hour by car. Zhenzhen got into the car and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, she found that the car had already stopped, and not far away was the Lu family villa. Little princess, let's play together again next time. Sun Haoyu said goodbye to her by pressing the car window. Thank you uncle, be careful when driving, uncle. Zhen leaned on Wu Mama's shoulder and waved at him. The system told her that Li Shang'an's medication had broken out and she was directly broadcasting it live. Everyone saw their blood pumping, and they all grabbed the beautiful woman next to them and became entangled. The female protagonist was entangled by the sound of deer and secretly went upstairs through the emergency passage. I found a room door open and quickly hid inside. The protagonist Halo law states that the female lead must enter the male lead's room. The male lead must have just taken a shower and exposed his 8-pack abs. The villain knocked on the door, and in a moment of desperation, the female protagonist hugged and kissed the male protagonist. Just like the original plot, the female protagonist slept with the male protagonist like a duck, except for the scene of using a fruit knife to stab the deer. TSK, it's really thunderous. Lu Ming didn't sleep until the female protagonist was in a bad mood. She was about to find a woman to vent her frustrations, but Anxinya took the initiative to send her to her door. In the original plot, Lu Ming shouted to kill the female protagonist while being attracted by her rebellious spirit, so he spared no effort to get her at all costs. There have been no bloodshed incidents now. I wonder if he will continue to cling to the female lead. Maybe. After all, the female protagonist had sex with the male protagonist even without traditional Chinese medicine. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 6. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 6. Pit Dad's Daughter. Chapter 6. Lu Ming dated Anxinya, but he didn't come back after that day. Instead, he went on a trip to France with a large group of people. Zhenzhen used this time to consolidate her relationship with Mrs. Lu and Mr. Lu. For others, it may be as difficult as heaven, but she is the daughter of Lu Ming. As long as she shows kindness, thoughtfulness, intelligence, and liveliness, she can help them relieve their worries. Grandma, the water you poured for me is so sweet. Did you add love to it? Oh my, this little mouth is like wiping honey. Grandpa, when will I grow up? What does Zhenzhen want to do when she grows up? I want to go fishing with my grandfather. Zhenzhen blows rainbow farts to her grandparents every day, and they both wish they could take her wherever they go. She has been to the afternoon tea of the noblewoman, the golf of the business tycoon, and so on. On August 5th, Lu Ming finally came back tired from playing. He never had the habit of carrying a handbag when traveling in the past, but this time he was careful and prepared, so he brought many gifts. Mrs. Lu's is jewelry, Mr. Lu's is wine, and Mr. Lu's is a children's toy. Thank you, said Zhen politely as she received the gift. Lu Ming feels strange. Has she changed her personality with the little girl? It's normal for her to forget that you've been playing outside for so long, neither making a phone call nor sending a video. Mrs. Lu no longer insists on her son fulfilling his father's responsibilities, and at best, she will raise him with the old man. Lu Ming was surprised. Although he didn't really like the sudden appearance of his daughter, the other person turned around and forgot about him, which hurt his self-esteem. Little girl, I'm your father. Have you forgotten? Hello Dad, welcome back. The pastor's attitude was distant. Lu Ming's blood surged as he watched. Forget it, out of sight and out of mind. After giving out the gifts, he went upstairs to rest. Sitting on the plane for so long was exhausting. For the next 2 days, Lu Ming stayed at home to rest and also observed his cheap daughter. Smart and eager to flatter, gets along well with parents, and occasionally video chats with Tong Tong, only treating him as heir. Lu Ming felt inexplicably annoyed. On the 3rd day, Sun Haoyu called and asked him to go out and play. Before leaving, Lu Ming glanced at the little girl and noticed that she was lowering her head to learn painting from Wu Mama, without even looking at him. The gathering was as usual, with young men and women laughing and cursing, either discussing luxury cars and villas, or making fun of car models and internet celebrities. After all, they are playboys who do everything except for serious matters. Anxinya sat next to Lu Ming, and the two of them are currently in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Occasionally, the others would joke around, which can be considered witty. The girls set their sights on other wealthy second-generation individuals, while the boys bet on the duration of Lu Ming's relationship. Some say 3 months, while others say 6 months. After entering high school, Lu Ming began to make girlfriends, with the longest conversation lasting 6 months and the shortest lasting only 3 days. He doesn't care if the other person is genuine or just for money. Anyway, when he gets tired of playing, he breaks up. So far, there are no exceptions. There will be an anniversary celebration at the resort in a few days, with deer crowing. Bring the pastors over to play, Sun Haoyu suddenly said halfway through the party. What are you taking her for? Lu Ming didn't care. I heard there is a large children's playground in the resort, will you take her with you? Anxinya coquettishly hugged Lu Ming's arm. That day, impulsively, she had sex with Lu Ming. Although they had a smooth relationship, Lu Ming never considered marrying her. Anxinya plans to finalize the marriage before Lu Ming proposes to break up. It may be difficult to win over Mrs. Deer, but it is easy to coax a 3-year-old child without a mother. I heard that Mrs. Lu and Mr. Lu have a special fondness for this granddaughter. As long as they coax her to become their mother, the plan will be half successful. Whatever. Lu Ming agreed as he saw Anxinya acting coquettishly. He is very satisfied with Anxinya. He can put it on the bed and understand the fun under the bed. Of course, the length of the relationship depends on whether he has met a woman who is more interested. On the anniversary day, Lu Ming changed his clothes and went downstairs, specifically asking the little girl if she wanted to go out and play with him. "If my grandparents don't go, neither will I." Zhenzhen frowned and said. "Are you really not going?" Lu Ming lowered his voice. "No, Dad has fun playing." After Zhen finished speaking, she went to accompany her grandmother to cut flowers. At this moment, the roses in the courtyard were blooming brightly, with crystal-clear dewdrops rolling between the leaves. The wind blew by, as if a beautiful girl was dancing gracefully. Mrs. Lu likes rose flowers, which are colorful and dazzling. White like snow, yellow like gold, pink like rosy clouds, red like fire. Before approaching, one can smell the refreshing fragrance, which makes one feel relaxed and happy. Lu Ming laughed angrily as he looked at the little figure who had gone far away, as if he was begging to go. Love goes or not, he doesn't serve anymore. With a clang, the deer crowed and went out. Zhenzhen lowered his head and smiled. In unfavorable circumstances, using retreat as an offensive strategy can be considered. She pinched her own thigh in secret, and the pain made tears burst into her eyes. Mrs. Lu watched as she silently wiped her tears and anxiously asked, "What's wrong with Zhenzhen? Do you want to go out and play with Dad?" "I can't go," Zhen said hoarsely. "Why can't we go? Tell Grandma. Dad hates taking me out to play. There is no father in this world who hates his daughter. Grandma is deceiving people. Every time I go out with Dad, he doesn't go home for a long time. It must be because he hates me going out with him." Zhenzhen cried uncontrollably, and Mrs. Lu felt extremely distressed. "Quickly call your son and ask him to turn around and explain." Lu Ming heard the crying of the little girl on the phone and his mood was very complicated. It seems like he took the little girl out 3 times, buying clothes, registering a household, and attending parties, but he never seemed to come home. Grass. Children are troublesome. When Lu Ming returned to the Lu family, Zhen no longer cried, but her red eyes looked like a little rabbit, pitiful and ridiculous. "Go change your clothes, I'll take you out," Lu Ming said stiffly. Zhen shook her head and refused to go out with him. "So what do you want? Are you really not going out with me in the future?" Zhen nodded, tears like broken pearls, unable to stop no matter how hard she tried. Mrs. Lu turned her head and scolded her son for having a better attitude. "He's the only one who's not afraid of him." Lu Ming impatiently scratched his hair. He not only disliked the sudden appearance of his daughter, but also felt it was a burden. Perhaps now is the best opportunity to shake off her, for some reason. But he couldn't bear it anymore. Time passed by little, and the pastor nestled quietly in Mrs. Lu's arms, waiting for the result. To be honest, she's not sure if this plan will work. But let Lu Ming know clearly that even a 3-year-old child can be sad and upset. "I promise to personally send you back this time, will that be enough?" Lu Ming let out a deep sigh. After all, she was her own daughter, so she couldn't really throw it away. "So let's hook up." Zhenzhen lifted his head from Mrs. Lu's arms and weakly extended his little thumb. "Okay, pull the hook. The scammer is the turtle bastard." Lu Ming always thinks that having a cheap daughter is not easy. How could this sentence have the feeling of cursing him? Perhaps he overthought it. The child is only 3 years old, what kind of heart can he have? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 7. Wu Mama took Shen upstairs to change clothes, while Lu Mama helped her pack her luggage. "Not coming back at night, I need to bring a lot of things." Both of them highly respect her views, except for essential items such as changing clothes and fruits and snacks, she can bring whatever she says. The 3 of them were busy upstairs, and downstairs Mrs. Lu rarely said anything meaningful to her son. For children, parents are their entire world. I didn't do well with your father, so I hope you don't repeat the same mistakes. What's wrong with you guys? I grew up like this too. Dear crowing. I'll wait for them in the car. Lu Ming walked out the door without looking back, and Mrs. Lu collapsed on the sofa. Many people say that time is a good medicine, but although wounds heal, the presence of scars occasionally reminds them of everything that has happened. Zhenzhen changed his clothes and went downstairs. He didn't see Lu Ming and thought he had left. When considering whether to teach him a lesson, Mrs. Lu said he was waiting outside. Okay, then forgive him for now. Wu Mama and Lu Mama accompanied each other, and Mrs. Lu asked them to report the situation on a regular basis without any mistakes. Lu Ming drove alone ahead, the music playing in the car was deafening, and Zhenzhen and Wu Ma sat in another car. In August, the clouds are light and the sky is high. The trees on both sides of the road are lush, and the golden sun shines through the layers of leaves, casting light spots. Zhenzhen turned her head and looked out the window, with a myriad of thoughts. I don't know how my parents are doing. I hope they haven't seen their bodies. Children are prone to drowsiness, and she falls asleep drowsily thinking about it. When I woke up, I had already arrived at the parking lot of the resort. Lu Ming got off the car and went to the front desk to register. The staff arranged a sightseeing car to take them to the villa. I saw many people on the road, including large tour groups, small families, or a few friends. The resort is mainly famous for its natural hot springs, in addition to large water parks and children's amusement parks. There are two types of accommodation, one is a boutique hotel, and the other is a quiet villa. Sun Haoyu deliberately left two adjacent villas, with girls living to the east and boys living to the west. As for how he came privately, he didn't care. The sightseeing car escorted them to the villa to the east, and Anxinya heard the sound and quickly came out to greet them. Zhenzhen looked up and found 8 young ladies besides Anxinya. It seems that it was brought over by Li Shang'an. His preference is very straightforward, with European-style big double eyelids and thick lips. Zhenzhen, long time no see, do you still remember me? As soon as Zhenzhen got off the car, Anxinya took the initiative to come and greet her, and other girls also gathered around. You are beautiful aunties. Zhenzhen blinked back. Oh my, it's so cute. Li Shang'an and the others have arrived, playing games next door. Anxinya greeted Zhen and walked up to Lu Ming. I'll go take a look. Lu Ming turned around and walked towards the next door. Zhenzhen and others entered the villa and patiently introduced the room to them, while asking the butler to bring milk and fruit. After Wu Ma gave Zhen a simple grooming, she took her to eat to avoid getting hungry when playing later. Anxinya naturally takes on the role of taking care of the pastor, and is also friendly to both Wu and Lu, which can easily create a favorable impression. The girls looked at her getting along well with Lu Ming's daughter and secretly envied her. I think as long as she captures the child's heart, it's like stepping into the deer's house. Baby, your clothes are so cute. Thank you, Auntie. Auntie's clothes are also beautiful. Ah, I also want to have such a daughter in the future. When Zhenzhen drank milk, all the girls ran over to touch her hair and pinch her cheeks. She is wearing a pink bunny short-sleeved shorts set today, which looks very soft and cute. After a while, the boy came over and called the girl out to play. Anxinya asked Wu and Lu Mama to rest in the villa, and after lunch, she would bring Zhen back. Wu's mother asked Lu's mother to rest, and she had to follow to save the young people from being flustered. Anxinya smiled after listening and said she didn't consider it. Everyone went to the indoor gymnasium, Lu Ming and Li Shang'an went to play bowling, while Sun Haoyu and the others played table tennis. With a loud bang, Lu Ming threw 2 balls and knocked down all 10 bottles. Everyone applauded and praised him for being amazing. Zhenzhen also patted her little hands and shouted, Dad, it's amazing. Hello noisy. Lu Ming frowned impatiently. Zhenzhen was stunned for a moment, then turned around to see Sun Haoyu and the others playing table tennis. Sun Haoyu saw that she was interested in table tennis, so he patiently taught her how to play. The club is too long and heavy for her, so she can only play with it by pushing it with her hands. No matter whether the ball hits or not, there is always a group of people praising her in various ways. Wow, Zhenzhen is so great. Zhenzhen is too powerful, he can even hit like this. After trying 5 or 6 times, she finally pushed the target ball into the bag. A group of people applauded one after another, as if she had done something very impressive. Lu Ming turned around and found that there were not many people watching him bowling with Li Shang'an. They all gathered around the little girl and immediately lost their mood. Li Shang'an wanted to play a secret room game, but Zhenzhen was too young to go to that kind of place. Wu Ma took her to a children's amusement park. The children's amusement park has a very large venue, with a total of 8 game areas including rock climbing, bumper cars, pirate boats, and ocean balls. There are many children inside, and you can hear the noise standing outside. Zhenzhen walked into the ocean sports arena, and Wu Mama was watching her outside with her bag on her back. There are about 10 children inside, aged between 2 and 6 years old. Some throw balls to play with, while others swim in ocean balls. There is a 4 or 5-year-old girl not far away, wearing a snow-white dress. She saw Zhenzhen alone, so she took the initiative to play with her. The two of them were having fun when a boy aged 6 or 7 walked over. I thought he wanted to join them, but to my surprise, he lifted the little girl's skirt and even reached out to touch it. The little girl was stunned, and when she regained her senses, she scolded the boy for being impolite. The boy instantly lowered his face, then forcefully pushed the girl into the ocean ball and threw himself at her. Zhenzhen stepped forward to stop, but was pushed down by the boy with one hand. The adults next to him came in one after another to dissuade him. Lose money, I'm telling you not to lose money, just wait for the defendant. The middle-aged woman shouting is not the parent of the little girl, but the parent of the boy. Because during the girl's resistance, her nails scratched the boy's cheek, leaving a red imprint of the length of her index finger. If you're unreasonable, it's your son who bullied my daughter first. The girl's father was so angry that his face turned red. What kind of bullying is not bullying? Now your daughter is not injured, my son is injured, you must compensate. The crazy woman harassed and pestered. No wonder people often say that behind a bare child, there must be a bare parent. Looking at the face of this middle-aged woman, you can tell why her son is not well-mannered. The upper beam is not straight and the lower beam is crooked. Check the surveillance footage, I'm not afraid you'll sue me. Oh my, you're hitting someone. Your daughter scratched my son's face, and I'm just offering reasonable compensation, so you're going to hit me. The crazy woman saw the man angrily raise her hand and immediately sat down on the ground crying and howling. The ignorant crowd criticized the father and daughter one after another. The little girl cried bitterly in injustice, her father trembled with anger, but he didn't know how to explain the accusations. I saw it, he ran over and lifted his sister's skirt. She said he was impolite, so he pinned her to the ground and beat her. He bullied people, you reversed black and white, you are bad people, I want to tell the police uncle. Zhen stood up to testify. Little girl, you're the only one who can talk, right? The crazy woman was furious and quickly got up from the ground to hit her. What are you doing? A stranger man stood up. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 8. Zhenzhen looked up and saw that the man was very tall, fair-skinned, with deep eyebrows and eyes. He carried a fairy aura that did not consume worldly pleasures, making him unforgettable. Teacher Li, what's wrong? The two photographers hurriedly arrived, along with Xia Chuyun. Teacher Li. So he is the male lead Li Chenfeng. The original plot. The male and female leads are filming a variety show at a resort. Lu Ming accidentally sees the female lead and forces her to spend the night with him. The male lead saves the beauty as a hero. Perhaps she has fallen into a mental misconception, thinking that letting Lu Ming reform is to prevent him from persecuting the female lead, and using other methods may be faster. For example, collaborating with male and female leads, directly sending Lu Ming to prison and having the police teach him to be a new person. Zhenzhen considered the feasibility of collaborating with the male and female leads, and Wu Ma hurriedly ran over. She just went to the restroom, and when she came out, she found someone arguing at the ocean arena, which scared her and made her sweat profusely. "Miss Zhen, are you okay?" Wu Mama checked up and down to confirm that there were no wounds on her body before letting out a sigh of relief. "That bad aunt wanted to hit me, but uncle stopped her," Zhenzhen pointed to the crazy woman and said. No need for further explanation, Wu Mama can guess the general process of the incident by listening to the people nearby discussing everything. She picked up the pastor and asked the amusement park staff to watch the video. At the beginning of summer, Yin also saw Zhenzhen, and his face became stiff. Does it mean that Lu Ming's daughter is here too? The investor of the program team is the Sun family, and the heir of the Sun family has a good relationship with Lu Ming. If they discover themselves, the consequences will be unimaginable. Xia Chuyun was very scared. Li Chenfeng noticed the change in her expression and thought she was scared by a crazy woman. He quickly asked the amusement park staff to come forward and handle it. Crazy women still have confidence and fearlessness as they see more and more onlookers. Anyway, her son is injured, someone must compensate, otherwise he will just stay here today and not leave. The little girl's father chose to report to the police, and the crazy woman cursed and said that her man was a soldier and not afraid to report to the police. The staff called for security and forcibly brought the crazy woman and her son into the conference room to avoid affecting other customers. The crowd gradually dispersed, and Zhen went to thank the male lead. After all, he had just stepped forward to protect himself. "Thank you, uncle." "You're welcome, as long as you're not injured," Li Chenfeng said and left with the program team, along with Xia Chuyun. Zhenzhen didn't know that the argument at the ocean arena was spread online, and due to the involvement of actor Li Chenfeng, it quickly became a hot search topic. One is that Li Chenfeng has seen injustice on the road, and the other is that Xiong parents and Xiong children. After watching the video, netizens criticized the little boy and his mother one after another. "If you don't know how to teach a son, don't take him out to harm others. Grass, little sister is very brave. Damn it, that crazy woman actually wanted to hit her. If it weren't for the actor's intervention, the child would probably have been injured. Expose their mother and son, stop coding at this time, let the whole country see their ugly faces, this guy is cruel and ruthless." It's certainly not the first time he lifted the little girl's skirt. His mother is still messing around, and it's really not a family that doesn't want to go into one house. There was a lot of online noise, and after thanking her in the amusement park, she told Wu Mama that she wanted to play with the doll catching machine. Wu Mama bought 50 game coins and then sat on the lounge chair playing a video for Mrs. Lu, telling her what had just happened. Mrs. Lu was very worried and quickly asked her granddaughter if she was afraid. Zhenzhen said she is not afraid, because evil triumphs over righteousness. After hanging up the video, a middle-aged bald man came over and chatted. "Child, who did you come with?" "Uncle, it's illegal to kidnap and sell children," Zhenzhen replied to him with caution. "Don't misunderstand, Uncle is a good person and won't kidnap or sell children." "Why is Uncle talking to me?" "Because you are very cute and brave." "Auntie, there's a strange uncle here, call the police quickly." Wu Mama's gaze was heavy, and the man quickly took out his business card from his bag to explain that he was a director of a variety show and not a bad person. Although Wu Mama is the nanny of the Lu family, she has been taking care of her wife for many years and is quite knowledgeable. She won't be frightened by the director's name. Your child is so cute. I wonder if you mind letting her show her face. I promise I won't maliciously edit it. I'm sorry, we don't shoot programs. May I ask if you have any concerns? As long as your child appears on the show, there will definitely be many people who like it. The director continued to ask, not giving up. We don't need to be popular, thank you for your kind words. Madam, do you have any conditions we can discuss? Children, do you want to appear on TV? The director couldn't convince the adults, so he turned his gaze to the children. I don't want to. Not to mention that the Liu family cannot expose their children to the spotlight, even if they agree, Lu Ming will come to sign the contract. Isn't there nowhere for the female lead to escape? She can't lift a stone and hit her own foot. The director looked at the other person's appearance of avoiding snakes and scorpions, and somewhat doubted whether he really looked like a human trafficker. Zhenzhen pulled Wu Mama to catch the doll, but unfortunately she was too unlucky and spent 20 game coins to catch it. Everyone saw a little girl in front of the doll grabbing machine, shaking the handle with a thud, but every time it was empty. Little sister, do you want me to help you catch it? Perhaps it's because there have been too many failures, and even the staff can't stand it. No, I want to catch it myself. Zhen shook her head. After spending 40 game coins, she finally caught the giant panda doll. It's really not easy, everyone applauded and cheered, and the staff even praised her for being so awesome with big speakers. She should leave quickly, it's too embarrassing. Zhenzhen and Wu Ma left the amusement park, and the rowing competition of Lu Ming and others also ended. Suddenly, someone held up their phone and said excitedly, Minga, Minga, the Zhenzhen little princess has been trending. What's wrong? Everyone present was curious. Do you think the child in this video is innocent? I remember she was wearing this outfit today and her voice sounded very similar. Lu Ming turned his head to look, even though his face was blocked, he was still certain that it was his cheap daughter. Despite being small in stature, he has great courage and dares to stand up when adults argue endlessly. The little princess is so brave. I wonder if she has been injured. Even if she's not injured, she's scared. That crazy woman is really terrifying. A few people discussed quietly, Anshinya was both worried and angry. Is it foolish or intentional for Wu's mother not to contact Lu Ming when such a big thing happened to the child? Knowing that she was also there, if her child was injured, Mrs. Lu would definitely have a bad impression of her. How could she marry into the Lu family then? No, she needs to make up for it as soon as possible, so as not to make Mrs. Lu feel that she is not good to the child and only knows how to play. Anshinya immediately suggests that everyone return to the villa to rest, just to see how Zhenzhen is doing. There is no objection from everyone, it's still time for lunch anyway. The sun is scorching outside, it's scorching hot. It's better to go back and play games. Speaking of which, Wu Ma did not expect to notify Lu Ming. Firstly, Lu Ming had a bad attitude towards the pastor, and secondly, she reported to Mrs. Lu that she had become accustomed to it. Lu Ming opened his phone, although there were several missed calls, none of them were from Wu Mama. That is to say, they feel no need to tell themselves about the little girl. Grass. Love to say or not, it's none of his business. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 9. Zhenzhen had just finished lunch when she looked up and saw Lu Ming walking into the hall with a fierce aura. She looked up and down at her, as if confirming something. Zhenzhen, are you not injured? We saw the video, did that crazy woman hit you? Zhenzhen vaguely understood and didn't know where they saw the video of him almost being beaten, so they came back in a panic. Looking at the eyes of Lu Ming, there was a hint of worry in his anger. Even if he doesn't admit that he is his daughter, the man's self-esteem makes him feel frustrated because if something happens, it will bring shame to the Lu family. She realized that this was the best opportunity to sell a fortune, so she pinched her thigh hard and raised her tearful eyes, sobbing, "I was so scared just now. The little sister had a father to protect her, but I didn't. I envy her so much." Everyone present looked at Lu Ming, and several girls might have been cursing loudly if they hadn't been concerned about their identity. "I'm sorry, Zhenzhen. If Wu Mama calls Dad in time, he will definitely go to protect you." "Lu Ming, do you think so?" "Anxinya plans to blame Wu Mama for this mistake." "It was my mistake," Wu Mama silently admitted without any defense. "You see, Wu Mama apologized. What should Zhenzhen do to forgive Dad?" Anxinya spoke eloquently. With a touch of her upper and lower lips, Lu Ming became an innocent person, and she was a stubborn child with a bad temper. Wow, I really should give her a round of applause. If she has this ability, she should become a speaker. Even black can be said to be white. Unfortunately, she is not a true 3-year-old child and knows how to win favor. So she wiped her tears and said with a grievance, "Dad, if you hug me, I'll forgive you." As soon as this sentence was spoken, everyone thought she was a little angel. She was too kind and sensible. However, the deer's ominous roar ignored her and turned around to leave. He just left like this. If it weren't for the crowds here, the pastors would have wanted to pull out their swords and kill him. His daughter begged for comfort pitifully, but he remained indifferent and had to say that Lang's heart was as hard as iron. How about she continue to consider the feasibility of collaborating with the male and female leads? After all, Lu Ming is not worth it. "Grass, I'm willing to be your dad, baby, come to my house." The girl in the blue dress couldn't help but curse. Look, this is the normal reaction of a person. "Feifei, don't add fuel to the fire." Anxinya was very busy, trying to stop Fang Feifei from speaking while speaking softly to the pastor. "Dad only didn't have lunch and left because he was too hungry. He definitely didn't hate you. You're really good at opening your eyes and telling lies." Fang Feifei pursed her lips. Her family's conditions are very good. If it weren't for the sake of Sun Haoyu's face, she wouldn't have come to such a boring party. Today, Li Shang'an brought 5 girls and 3 boys to support the audience. Fang Feifei led 2 best friends, along with Lu Ming, and Xinya, and Sun Haoyu, to form a team of 5 men and 9 women. Among this group of people, only Fang Feifei dared to criticize Lu Ming for 2 main reasons. Firstly, his grandfather held a high position and even had to bow down to say hello to Mr. Lu. Secondly, she has a crush on Sun Haoyu and dislikes Lu Ming. What do you mean by that? And Xinya's smile gradually disappeared. Although her family background was not as good as Fang Feifei, she is now Lu Ming's girlfriend. It's not very interesting, it's just envy that Lu Ming is in good fortune and doesn't know what good fortune is. "Zhenzhen little baby, Auntie is leaving first, and I'll come play with you next time." Fang Feifei felt bored and led her 2 best friends away. Anshin Yaki was so angry that her chest hurt. She couldn't stand Fang Feifei's towering appearance since high school, and Fang Feifei couldn't stand her pitiful appearance either. Previously, due to the situation, she had to bow her head, but when her grandfather retired and she married into the Lu family, who could have laughed until the end was uncertain. Li Shang'an felt that he had nothing to do and left. In addition to Zhenzhen, Wu Ma, and Lu Ma, there are also Anxinya and 5 other girls in the hall. After playing all morning, the girls had powder on their faces, each with a grim expression. They quickly returned to their room to take a shower and remove their makeup. Anxinya wanted to continue her pastoral ideological work, but Wu Mama said it was time for a nap and she had to give up. Wu Mama helped Shen wipe her face and hands, and then coaxed her to take a nap. When she was half asleep and half awake, Lu Ming suddenly burst in. "My hair was wet and I changed my clothes. Did he just leave to take a shower? Do you still want to hug?" Lu Ming asked in a deep voice. "Yes." Zhen opened her hands. Lu Ming bent down to pick up the cheap girl, much lighter than he had imagined, with a soft and sweet strawberry scent emanating from her body. The scorching sun outside the window, the flowers and plants drooping in despair, the pedestrians on the road sweating profusely, only cicadas tirelessly calling from the trees. The air conditioning in the room was on very loudly, and the sound of reading 300 Tang poems came from the early education machine. Wu Mama didn't know when to leave. Father and daughter looked at each other, but for some reason, they suddenly smiled with similar dimples on their faces. Are you satisfied now? No, I'm still very sad. Don't push yourself too far. Lu Ming's face showed a fierce light, and the gentle father's experience card only lasted for 1 minute, with pitiful patience. Zhenzhen secretly yawned and then lifted her head, tears hanging from the corners of her eyes, looking very sad. The deer chirped and didn't speak again, but their expressions softened a lot. Speaking of which, there is a big contrast between him. When he has a straight face, he looks particularly fierce, but when he smiles, he also appears very sunny. Zhenzhen was extremely tired, and in the end, her head tilted and she fell asleep. Lu Ming lowered his head and looked down, good guy, sleeping like a pig. For some unknown reason, he suddenly shook vigorously, trying to wake up the little brat. However, despite being exhausted and sweating profusely, she slept soundly. Wu Mama pushed the door in and saw Lu Ming with a gloomy face, while the child in her arms had some beautiful dream and was smiling at the corner of her mouth. When Zhenzhen woke up, it was almost 3 o'clock, and both men and women were joking and playing in the hall. Someone is playing cards, someone is playing games, and there are also playing chess or watching movies. Their plan is to soak in hot springs at 5 o'clock and go to Firefly Forest to check in at 8 o'clock. Firefly Forest is the biggest selling point of resorts from July to September, and many people like to bring their children over to experience it. In the original plot, Lu Ming meets the female protagonist in the Firefly Forest and triggers a series of events. Although she really wants to see countless fireflies dancing under the night sky, it's more important to prevent Lu Ming from meeting the female lead. Zhenzhen woke up, are you hungry? Angzinia was brewing coffee when she saw Wu Mama leading Zhenzhen downstairs and asked enthusiastically. I want to eat fruit salad, Zhenzhen replied to her. Okay, I'll make it for you. Come and pick the fruits you want to eat. Thank you, Aunt Xinya. Aunt Xinya has excellent cooking skills and skilled knife techniques. She can even carve small animals on fruits, such as rabbits, bears, and horses. After Zhenzhen finished eating, Aunt Xinya accompanied her to play games again. I don't know if Sun Haoyu asked people to prepare in advance. There are many toys in the villa, such as small tents, ocean balls, swings, building blocks, etc. Zhenzhen saw the stacked wooden buckets and said she wanted to play with them. The gameplay of stacking height is to first push 50.4 building blocks into towers, and then take turns extracting them. The collapse of the tower means the end of the game. She often plays in the real world and is quite experienced. Aunt Xinya lost 2 consecutive games and quickly waved her hand, saying she didn't want to play anymore. The others came over to challenge after hearing about it. The first one is Li Shang'an, who sat down next to Zhenzhen. The two of them carefully drew the building blocks, and the tower space became larger and fewer. Zhenzhen had just taken away a building block when the tower tilted and almost collapsed, making her so scared that she couldn't even breathe. Li Shang'an gave her a thumbs up and looked left and right, feeling that no matter which piece he pulled, it would fall. Sure enough, as soon as he pulled out half, the tower collapsed with a loud crash. The little princess is really amazing. Let's have another round. The loser needs to fulfill the winner's wish, okay. Li Shang'an felt unbelievable, as he lost to a 3-year-old child while playing the game. Dad, help. Zhenzhen didn't know if Li Shang'an had any suspicious wishes. Just in case, she pulled Lu Ming in. Lu Ming did not refuse. During the process of playing the game, the father-daughter relationship became closer and closer, and Wu and Lu looked very satisfied. As for children, as long as they play with them more, they will open up their hearts. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Daughter of the Pit Father. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.